Bonsoir à tous, good evening. Welcome at Station F. Welcome today to this Ask Me Anything session on, well, as you know it, on fundraising. Today we're going to discuss, well, if we should raise or not, and when should we raise. So today we're at Station F, and fortunately I'm not alone. So my name is Marwan, and the head of startup programs at Station F, and I have the great chance and honor to welcome two entrepreneurs with me, Carole and Guillaume. Welcome.
Thank you, Marwan.
And again, so this is an Ask Me Anything session, so I'm not going to ask the questions alone, so please have a look at your chat, raise the hands, I would say, so you can share any questions in the chat tab, and I'd be happy to share it with our beloved guests. So first, well, let's do a quick round of intro, so you can present what you are doing and what you did before. Well, let me start with you, Carole.
Because I'm the girl.
Because you are the one who raised, but this is a spoiler. So, Carole, can you tell us what you are doing exactly with JOONE?
So hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here, so thank you for having me. My name's Carole. I'm the CEO and founder of JOONE, which is a company I launched about 4 years ago. We sell hygiene and care product for the entire family, so baby, woman. We've been live for 4 years now. We do 20 million in revenue. We've been break-even for about 2.5 years now. There's 65 of us in Paris and about 10 abroad. So it's a fun time for the company. And yeah, that's about it.
So is it your first venture?
No, it's actually my second venture. Okay. I had a first startup company before that. I didn't have a business model. I tried to fundraise. But when you don't have a business model, a lot of startups actually don't have a business model and start to fundraise. But I didn't. I lucked out of this, so I had to close down. But it taught me a lot, especially about how to stop making poor decisions.
And was your first venture in software, or did you sell physical items?
No, I wasn't selling physical items. I was selling. Well, I wasn't selling because I didn't have a business model, obviously. No, it was an app connecting parents and future parents. This is actually my first baby, so it's weird that I've been doing like parent things for so long without having my own kids. But it was an app. It actually now exists in a much better version and in a very funded version in the UK. It's called Peanut, and ours was called Mommyville, and it was mostly for French and Belgian consumers.
Okay, cool. Well, Guillaume, now, who are you? What do you do exactly with Lemlist?
So my name is Guillaume Moubeche. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lemlist. Lemlist is a platform that helps B2B companies get in touch with their next customers. So we launched in 2018, so about 3 years ago. We have 10,000 plus customers worldwide. The vast majority of our customers is based in the US, and we sell in more than 80 countries worldwide.
Nice.
It's been like a crazy ride. We're growing at a 2-digit month-over-month growth rate. We have crossed 6 million annual recurring revenue 1 month ago, and yeah, it's been pretty exciting for us. On the side, also, I built Lempod, another SaaS project that got acquired by a group of Australian entrepreneurs back in 2020.
Okay, on the side,
on
just
the
side
side.
project. Nice.
Yeah,
Fancy.
It was quite nice. Yeah, we got a great opportunity, so we decided to sell it and keep focusing on Lemlist because it was getting too big.
So how many employees do you have currently at Lemlist?
We have a small team. We're 35 people in 5 different countries.
Okay. In the US as well?
No one is based in the US, no.
Okay, cool.
Even though like 80% of our customers are in the US, we're still like mostly Europe-based.
Cool. Well, the topic today is should we raise or not, and with whom, or is there any alternative? So, Carole, I guess you raised with your current company. So can you just share the story with whom? Is it angel investors? Is it VCs? How many rounds?
So basically, when we started off, we did fundraise a little bit because we had the one thing when you have to launch a product is you need to have some cash at the beginning. And because I was just out of my first startup company, which left me completely bankrupt and financially absolutely, I was restricted at the Banque de France. So I was at a level where I literally could barely afford rent. So obviously I had to fundraise a little bit of money just to get the first production started. It's something that I could honestly have easily done on platform, like fundraising platforms, like Kiss Bang Bang, or Ulule in Europe is also quite popular. It's not something that I did, but it's something that a lot of other companies, very successful companies, have done, like Respire, fundraised their first tour like that. So it's an interesting way of looking at finding money to get your first production started. And then we raised with Alvin Capital in 2018.
Okay.
Why Alvin? Because they're really good. They have a really good understanding of the market, and they also have a very good understanding of brands. And what's interesting is I would always say, always choose who you're going to fundraise with, because I have this comparison. Like a lot of entrepreneurs feel like raising money is a check from grandma you get at Christmas. You just get the money and you can just do whatever you want with it. It is so not true. It's basically sharing a bedroom, a living room, a bathroom every single day with someone for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And so it's very committing. And so you really have to share with someone who share your values. And it's also why it's very important to be brutally honest with anyone you want to fundraise with. Always show up with exactly what's working, what's not working, and exactly what you want to stand for. And one of the things that we wanted to stand for was, and I always say that to all the investors that I meet, I'm not here to make sure you get a bonus at the end of the year. I don't work for the fund. I don't work for evaluation. I'm not working to match the valuation that you want. I'm working for the company. And that's it. And that gets a few of them away very naturally.
But when you started the roadshow, I mean, you had to find an investor. So I guess you looked at VCs, looked at angel investors. So how did you make the choice?
Well, angels are very easy to talk to when you're like really pre-early phase, because they have this understanding of, you just get money quickly. You don't get a lot of money, but you get money quickly. And they have a vision of risk that's much different. Doing the seed round we did with Alvin, we had already almost a year of existence. We didn't have a lot of revenue, but we had traction. And also we did meet break even like a few months after fundraising with Alvin. So it was really an interesting position, because raising funds when you are not break even and raising funds when you are break even is basically two different stories. So it's an interesting process, honestly. It's not particularly hard. You get to meet so many different kind of people, especially because I'm a girl. I'm a solo funder, so some of them you just really know you don't want to fundraise with, and some have this notion that they want a girl in the portfolio, and you're like kind of coming as the girl in the portfolio, so it's kind of weird too. But it's a very interesting process, and I would say that you also get to talk to a lot of very clever people who have this very unique vision of the market that you don't always have, because you're very focused on your growth in your company. So it's actually interesting because you get to talk to people, and it really changes the way you look. But I do prefer VC funds because they are a bit more structured than business angel. Sometimes business angels are basically like customers. It's like the 80-20% rule. Like the people who put 20% of the money end up being annoying 80% of the time. Funds are not like that. You choose one fund and that's it. One fund, one person, and you have to deal with one person. So it's actually quite convenient.
Cool. And Guillaume, what was your position when you started Lemlist regarding fundraising?
So I actually started Lemlist in Station F. And for me, in the early days, I thought that the only path to success was actually, go meet VCs, get $1 million, start fundraising, and, be on TechCrunch, have an article.
Crunchbase and so on.
Yeah, exactly. So I started talking to a couple of VCs. And after a month, I kept receiving rejection messages because they were telling me, your market is way too crowded. There are already, tons of different companies doing the exact same thing. you are basically like a nobody, like we don't know you, and your co-founders don't even show up to meetings because my co-founders were two technical geniuses, don't like VCs, and they were just like, let me code. And
you had some tractions when you started to contact
no,
VCs?
Initially I thought, like, yeah, it's easy to raise funds. You're in Station F. I was at Incubator HEC, so I was like, okay, it's got to be like pretty easy. But then, after receiving rejection messages, I was like, you know what? Like, for me, it's very boring to do like pitch meeting and all these type of things. And I prefer 100 times. So at that time, I remember receiving during my kind of like mini roadshow, like the company was 2 weeks old. and essentially I received a message of someone I had helped to launch their sales prospecting campaign. And basically the message was like, hey G, like I know your time is valuable, but just to let you know that I've just signed my first $20,000 contract thanks to the campaign we launched together. Thanks again, it's amazing. And just this feeling, of really like helping out people find their customers, grow their business. I knew that it was the only thing I wanted to recreate. And from then, I just focused on the success of our users, built like a community, which became later on like the biggest community around sales automation. So it quickly escalated, and we were actually profitable almost from day one as soon as we signed our first customers. So, yeah.
But did you get some valuable feedbacks from the first roadshow you did with some VCs?
No.
Not a single one.
To be honest, it was, to be entirely transparent, the VC I met didn't know the market. Okay. Like they were comparing us to like for example, MailChimp or things like that, when actually our market is more about sales prospecting. So our biggest competitor were US-based, and they were thinking, yeah, this is too small. These companies actually raised more than $300 million and are both unicorns. But, like every time I had a chat with these VCs, I was like, okay, I don't think they understand us really. And it was probably my fault because at that time, I didn't even know what we really wanted to do. But yeah, later on, I actually met a lot of VCs that were great and super smart. But in the early days, no, not really.
So at the end of the first year, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to say what Guillaume is saying is super right, is when you actually focus on fundraising instead of focusing on the product and the customer, you end up wasting a ridiculously huge amount of time. It's exactly the amount of time that you would waste filling out the BPI forms or the forms for any subsidiaries, any subventions or stuff.
You never did it? The BPI forms?
The what?
The BPI forms.
I wasted so much time in my first startup company. Oh my gosh, I tried, and I never got any money out of them. and that's really weird because I never started doing it with JOONE. I was like, I don't care. I just want to get customers, product. It's exactly what you said. And funnily enough, the BPI ends up showing up at some point and saying, we want to give you money. I was like, I don't need it now because, I'm break even. So, but yeah, what I think the really big message is focus on the customer and the product, because ultimately, at the end of the day, the money has to come from the product and the customer.
But on your situation, you had to raise because of the previous company, and because also on the solution you are selling. You are selling physical products.
Yeah, I mean, when you sell physical products, you have to have at some point some starting money. So I unfortunately I was bankrupt. So I couldn't. I was bankrupt, and I come from a very middle income family from the center of France. So I don't come from a family where people could just like shovel love money in my direction. I was like, it's not love money. It's rich family money. Yeah. And, let's just call it what it is. And so ultimately, I really just had to have some cash, but I was also very strict with myself, and I said, you have this money to get this production paid for, and then you have 9 months to prove there's the market fit. If you don't reach PMF in 9 months, just go and do something else. And being very strict about this also really raised the stakes, because you're just thinking, I have 9 months to make product market fit, so I'm not gonna waste 2 months filling out whatever BPI form or just trying to like go and pitch and like, because honestly, if you want to meet like very early on, if you want to meet with business angels or VC, it's not, one call, one thing. That works, once you've done BFM 20 times, once you've done 1, 2, 3 companies, you can raise funds, wearing flip-flops and showing up with a deck that you wrote on a paperboard and just say, I want 10 million. That works. when you're a first-time entrepreneur, it just doesn't work. You have to ask once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 20 times. You have to do like one exec summary. Some people would say, I need a 5-pager, I need a 10-pager, I need a 20-pager. And every single one of these people is probably not even going to get back to you at any point. It's very, very time-consuming, and it's very depressing, honestly.
How long did you take for the first roadshow when you tried first?
I think it was like for 2 weeks or something.
Just 2 weeks, okay.
Yeah, because I got bored. Like eventually I was like, okay, I have other things to do because it was just the 3 of us.
Good job, yeah.
Yeah, we started the company with 1,000 euros, so we each put 300 euros in the company. And eventually, you know, I was like, okay, I need to do content, I need to start the marketing, start doing sales prospecting, meeting with potential customers, etc. So I was a bit too focused on the business side of things rather than just going after funds.
Did you set up a deadline? So you said 9 months for you to decide if you continue or not?
Actually, I for me, it was also 9 months. I was like, so we started in January 2018, and I was like, in September, I need to reach like some milestones. But actually, like, I think the milestone I had set were too ambitious, but we could see that we had traction. So I was like, okay, it's fine. We're going to continue.
Cool. So guys, don't forget to ask any questions. I'm a lazy guy, so if you have any questions, please share it. So we have a great one from Chloe. So Carole, you talked about the value alignment with investors. Mm-hmm. What are the values you would have absolutely never given up on?
Transparency. I would never, ever sign with any kind of investors who would not understand the value of truth and the value of dialogue. And it's something that works both ways. Let's just put it this way. People always, there are plenty of ways you can run a board and a relationship to your investor. The more transparent you are and the more open the discussion line is, the easier it gets. People always feel like, I don't want to talk to my investor all the time because it feels then there's a fear they may be like meddling and just like always have an opinion. It just doesn't work like that. You're just being transparent about everything means I have nothing to hide. And no one ever comes at a board meeting thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Everything is always addressed. We are extremely transparent with the numbers. Everyone at the company has the numbers every single week. Every investor has the numbers every single week about anything.
Once a week, you share a report.
Yeah, it's not big, and no one ever writes back saying, "Ooh, my gosh, what's going on?" Because they're just used. The flow of information is just so constant that they're just used to it and they just accept it for what it is. And I have nothing to hide from my investor, from my staff, from my consumer. And it's always the way I work because I value truth above literally everything else. Because truth actually builds a lot of trust. And there's nothing more important in life than truth and trust, which is weird because it's business. So it's like, business, truth, trust, like it doesn't really work together. But it's really part of what I want to demonstrate because I have this vision, this crazy vision, that capitalism can actually be very holistic and that we can work building an economy that is positive, creating jobs, creating value, but creating values and promoting positive values and not just yachts for rich people.
Transparency, nice. Going back on your own milestones, so a great question from Marie-Ange. What are the milestones you set up for the first 9 months? And how much did you achieve? Like 90%, 80% of it, or 50%?
Yeah, I think in terms of revenue, we were like, I think a bit higher than we expected because we had launched in the US with a partner over there. So when we launched, in 2 weeks, we made $160,000, which is huge for software. But actually, they took 70% of it. So I was like, fuck. Because usually, you know, you build the software because you want a really high margin, etc. Because the cost of server, it's like 100 euros or 200 euros. And then you can scale up to millions, you know, with that. So
what was the purpose of having a partner for the US?
For us, it was just because like we were in beta. And we didn't even have set up the payment system, but we made people believe that, you know, like everything was fully working, etc., etc. And they handled everything because they had like a huge community based in the US, and they were happy to advertise on it. So I had a team from the US of copywriters from their company work on the launch package and everything. So it was actually really cool. So in terms of money, we were way ahead, but in terms of monthly recurring revenue, which we use actually for us to get paid, we're a bit behind. So essentially, I think it was maybe like 85% of the goal. And for me, the goal was, okay, after 9 months, you need to start paying yourself. Because my girlfriend at that time was paying the rent. So I was like, yeah, you know.
I have a deadline. I have a deadline.
Yeah, she left me afterwards.
She regrets it now.
And when did you start to make money?
So we started making money like 3 months after the first line of codes, and we started paying ourselves 1 year after we launched Lemlist, which is pretty quick.
Really quick, yeah.
Yeah, for software.
Another question from Sophie. Is there a good time for fundraising? When do you know your company is ready? If it has to be ready. Go ahead.
I think like fundraising is not like always the only route to success. And I think that sometimes, you know, like the price to your freedom is sometimes much more valuable than the funds you can get. So that's the first thing. But as I think we're super aligned with Carole on this, like if you focus on your customers, on the value you're bringing, and on profitability, because I think you're a good example. Like you've raised money from investors, from business angel, VCs, but in the end you're break even. So you're like right now she is in the perfect spot, which means that if she wants to raise more, she can, because she can. Basically, a VC would tell you like, yeah, do you want to raise money or not? And she can say fuck you if she doesn't want, or she can say yeah, sure, but under my terms. Whereas, you know, like we see a lot of companies who are raising funds at, let's say, crazy valuation. And because right now, like to make it super simple, money is everywhere. Like raising funds is pretty easy if you have a profitable business. However, because, you know, you have so much competitivity between funds, it's also easy to get a super high valuation. But eventually, you know, you're going to get a lot of cash. You're going to burn a lot because obviously for funds, it's important for you to spend the money you've just raised. But if you can't reach your milestones and be break-even, then you're going to be in the weak spot. So you're going to have to raise, again, more money. But if you're not profitable, the funds will tell you, okay, I know your burn rate. I know that in 2 months you're going to run out of cash. So basically, they have your balls in their hand and they decide about your fate. You know?
It's so true. It's like, it's basically a drug dealer relationship. Like the more people give it to you, the more you want it. And it gets really unhealthy. And there's a lot of things, like one of the things that we've already talked a lot with Guillaume about is behind a number, a valuation number, like a price tag on how much you fundraise. There are so many things that no one says, because these are the confidential things. Like anyone can go ahead and say, oh, I'm a unicorn, I raised 50 million, I raised X million. Honestly, this is bullshit. What matters is the fine print. And the fine print is, today you have people in Paris who've raised a massive amount of money and who have literally no power, who have no decision-making power within the company, who have very little amount of equity left. And ultimately, that's what matters, because the valuation is just something that is going to make the press happy, that is going to make the fund happy, and that's it. No one else is going to be happy about a valuation except your own ego and the press. And I do get that it's interesting, because it does provide a vibe of the market. I mean, I do know it's important that we have unicorns in France, because it also shows, you know, Doctolib, Alan, they have such a massive impact on the ecosystem right now. It makes sense that we have these unicorns right now. But not everyone can be a unicorn. Not everyone should be a unicorn. At the end of the day, it also comes down to, what do you want to do with your company? Do you want to sell your company? Do you want to IPO your company? Do you want to keep your company for 20, 25 years? So it really depends on what you want to do with your company. And that should tell you whether you should fundraise and when you should fundraise and at which cost. And the cost is not the price tag or the valuation. The cost is, what does the paperwork say and what kind of rights you retain as a funder.
So talking about how you can make the press happy. So you can raise, show big numbers, or you can have a cool story to share. So Guillaume, can you just share with us the big press buzz you made the last few weeks?
Yeah, sure. So back in January this year, I've built a YouTube channel where I document a lot of things regarding entrepreneurship. I try to give a lot of tips because like I've been always helping entrepreneurs to start their own business. And I was a bit frustrated because I had a lot of people coming to me and saying, hey, Guillaume, I've been talking to investors for 6 months. They're like, I can't raise money. I don't know how I'm going to be successful, etc. And then I was like, okay, just, get the money from your customers. It's like the first step. And eventually I was repeating this so much. So I was like, okay, let's show the world that, success should not be equal to the amount of fund you raise. So, I could send a message to some journalist and say, yeah, we should write an article about that. But they would have said, yeah, fuck you, Guillaume. We are a media. So essentially we have a lot of VCs also investing. And then I said, okay, I'm going to do my own thing. So I said, fundraising, I'm not against it. I think for some companies it can be super helpful. So I'm going to document every single step. So I talked to founders who have raised total of 600 millions. Then I talked to VCs in order to understand what make a good pitch, how exactly do you fundraise, because actually I didn't know a single shit about it at that time. So I learned a lot, and then I was like, okay, this is
you can raise now. You have everything.
Yeah, exactly, and this is YouTube, so you have to take actions eventually. So I was like, okay, let's announce publicly that I give myself 2 weeks to raise 20 millions. So,
just 2 weeks.
Yeah, just 2 weeks. I didn't want to waste too much time.
It was a question I had, how long did it take? The 2 weeks, okay.
Yeah, so 2 weeks, and then I said, okay, so because a lot of VCs, because we are super transparent with our numbers also outside, so we share every, I think, 6 months to 3 months, I write an article about the different milestones we reach, how we reach them, etc. So I already had a lot of VCs who had reached out to me, and actually, the one that I really liked was Pascal. So she's a French VC based in the US, and Roxanne Varza, she was the one making the intro back in September. So I was like, okay, I'm going to reach out to her, start chatting, and I was like, okay, Pascal, I'm raising. Do you want to be the VC doing the entire pitch and everything? And during the pitch, when she saw our numbers, she was super excited, and she started asking me to dig in. In the middle of this, I wanted to take a holiday, so I went to Mexico. And back at the airport, she asked me for more numbers, so I created a bit everything, documenting everything. And then after 10 days, we received a term sheet, so $20 million at a $100 million valuation. And instead of saying no, because I wanted to say no from the start and then make a big fuss about it, I decided, okay, let's see, how much enthusiasm can we have from VCs and everything. So I announced that we received that first term sheet. And since then, my mailbox got full. I got messages, people were sending me WhatsApp. I had investors WhatsApping me. I was like, how the fuck did you get my number, and it got so crazy that in the end, we received an offer, but this time it was not from a VC. It was from a private equity fund.
Okay.
And instead of 20 million, they offered us $30 million. But within the $30 million, there were $15 million in secondary, which is cash out, meaning $5 million for me and my 2 associates. So I was like, fuck, that's first, what the fuck is a private equity fund? Because I only knew about VCs. For me, private equity was yeah, these are the big funds giving maybe money to VCs or eventually just investing hundreds of millions of dollars. And actually, the truth is they're very unwell known from startup, but for them, 30 million is it's the same as if, my mom give me money to buy candies, It's yeah, it's a very small amount. So that day, I was 100% sure that we were going to say no, and then I was like, fuck, it's 5 million in my pocket. I keep the control of the company. They have we're still the 3 co-founders. We have much more voting powers, etc. And they were also quite nice in the research they done. So I was like, okay, what shall we do? And then, I started discussing with the team why exactly we started doing this. And in the end, we wanted to share a message. So we just decided to say no to this amount of money, to the 30 million, so $5 million in our pocket. Actually, Pascal was really helpful at that time. So I called her on a Saturday night, and I was like, okay, Pascal, we received another offer. It's 30 million, and there is $15 million in cash out. She was like, fuck, 15 million. Then I was like, yeah, what are we going to do? Because I come from, low-income family. My dad had to have, 2 jobs, they didn't do any degree, my parents, or didn't study. So 5 million is a lot, and same for my co-founders. So I was like, okay. And then she was saying, she's like, okay, let me take off my investor's hat. She's like, right at the end of the year, we will crush, the 10 million ARR. For software, it's huge. You're going to get, so many much opportunities. You don't care. Just do your thing, say no, and go all in, and you'll see. And that's what we did. So we said no, and I think for the team it was also great because at the end of the year we also give a percentage of our revenue to our employee. And whenever you have VCs, that's not the type of things they really want to do, you know. So yeah, it's.
And then a great communication campaign, many articles.
Yeah, exactly.
Great buzz.
Yeah. We got like a lot of press, like millions of views on mainstream media in France, but also outside of France. We got press coverage a bit internationally. So
new customers.
Yeah, a lot of new customers.
Nice.
I think it's like super brave because we always talk about the big endings and the big numbers in the press, but ultimately it's very brave to say no, either no period or no to a few things. And one of the few very useful advice that I've got during negotiation and fundraising was if you want to win everything, you've got to be ready to lose everything. And it's something that, as an entrepreneur, we know, we're used to risks, like we love taking risks. But at some point, we're not like we're not batshit crazy. And at some point, when someone says, "Do you want this pillow?" it's very comforting to say, maybe that 5 million pillow is like, yeah, why not? But it takes a lot of courage to just say no, whether it's to a big number or to a term in your term sheet. And I think that's what makes the difference between the great companies, the companies that last without the time, is your decision-making process, your ability to say no, your ability to make the tough decisions. Because ultimately, making a tough decision like refusing 5 million is a tough decision. But sometimes you have to make really tough decisions like, letting go of staff or doing like a pivot that you really don't want to do, that you don't really know how to do. But it is what makes an entrepreneur at the end of the day, is the ability to make the tough calls. When everyone says you should do it, to just say, no, this is what I stand for, and I'm not going to stand for something else. I think it's really brave.
There's a question on the chat on what you thought the first time you see the story. What was your first opinion? Is it crazy or? My
first opinion was I'm a media.
Who the fuck is that guy?
No, my first opinion was I'm lucky enough. Okay, so basically I'm a former professor and a former actress. So doing PR is really easy. It comes naturally for me. I'm not scared to talk to anyone. You can, I'm really. It comes naturally to me. So my first thought was, fuck, he's good when it comes to PR. I was like, wow. And then the second part was a little bit, how much of this is bullshit and how much of this is true? But it's a very entrepreneur thing. I'm not saying, we've talked already with Guillaume. We did a few things together before, and he's a really great guy. So the thing is, because as an entrepreneur, we know how much goes behind a number. You always want to know, okay, that's a number. What's the real story behind a number? Like, what does the fine print say? Because we all have friends in the ecosystem who would just brag about stuff on BFM. And at the end of the day, it's a little bit for show. So the first instinct, especially when it's someone that I had never heard of Guillaume before. He did his PR tour. And the first thing you want to know is, all right, so what's the story behind it? So we talked about this. We did a Clubhouse thing together. It was like everyone was attacking. He was like, no, everyone's just curious. But at the same time, honestly, it doesn't really matter. I think the story that he's telling is just so true about the ecosystem right now. You go to Silicon Valley, any company without any proof of anything raises 1 million, 10 million on nothing. And it really comes down to something that is quite unhealthy, because at the end of the day, there's always an ending judge. And it's usually the stock market. When you look at companies like Casper, a few companies that have IPO'd in the past few years, none of them have done as well as they expected. Not all of them, but some of them haven't done as well as they expected to be. Because at the end of the day, you cannot just have fun with the money and there are no consequences. Whether it is a consequence for you as a funder, because you have so much preferential actions over you on the waterfall, that ultimately, at the end of the day, you have this great company that is valued millions or billions of dollars, and when you IPO, you're so far down the line that you don't end up making that much money out of it, which is a reality, honestly, that no one talks about. And I think it really comes down to the market has to come a little bit to the senses, which is something that when you have a product, people just behave a little bit more reasonably, and because it's a very accurate business model. Like, you know, the difference between JOONE and Maison du Monde is very small. We're very digital, obviously, but you know, it comes down to margins, metrics, distribution, and stuff like that. When you go to SaaS, people just lose their minds, like literally. And you see so many acquisitions go wrong that, you know, at the end of the day, when a good acquisition comes out, and a good acquisition is a good valued acquisition, a worthy acquisition, something that makes sense, and something that actually happens, you know, everyone's just, that's all in terms of price tag. I mean, shit, that's all. It's awesome because it's a good ending and it's a fair ending. And I think at the end of the day, it's also what makes it fair.
Did you get any feedbacks from VCs after all the fuzz?
Oh my God, please tell me. I want to know.
Actually, like, I was really surprised because, you know, like, I knew it was a big risk on that end. Like, I was thinking, you know, like, some of them would get pissed, etc. But actually, it was the first time I saw actual VC posting something on LinkedIn about the story and saying, like, I 100% agree with this vision. We need more profitable companies. And then, you know, like, I didn't understand their view at the very beginning. But when I had a chat with them, most of them were telling me, you know what my job is? 90% of the time is to say no. I keep saying no to people. I keep receiving pitch decks that are shit. I keep receiving pitch decks where people think that because they've seen an article of a young guy raising that they can do it as well. And it's like, but at the same time, you don't want to miss on maybe like the opportunity of your life. So they have to go through every deck, but most decks are shit because, you know, people just think that they can raise like this. So they were like, thank you for showing, you know, like the world, like that you can actually do things differently. And yeah, overall, I think it was great. Like, I received a lot of messages also from people saying, I'm wondering if I should raise or not. Your message like resonated with me, full focus on my customers. And in the end, like, to be honest, I still receive 2 to 3 times per week messages from investors who want to invest in Lemlists. Like, it's something like when you are like transparent and you're making a lot of money, no matter what you do, in the end, people will always want to invest. Like, they are investors. Their goal is to make money. It's not a matter of, you know, emotions or whatever. They want to make money. So if you're like in hypergrowth, you'll make money.
Cool. I have a question from Cedric regarding the scope of fundraising. So is it only reserved for tech startups? Of course not. Was it very difficult for you to convince investors because, again, on what you are selling?
Honestly, no. But because we're a very well-structured company, one of the strengths that comes with documented everything and being so transparent is that you document everything, because transparency comes with proof. It's like love. Like, you need to say, I love you to someone if you want them to believe you. So when you want to say, I'm transparent, you have to show stuff. So being very transparent and documenting everything makes it that whenever we started fundraising, we did fundraise last year to find money for expansion, because we've been break even for 2.5 years. But because we're launching abroad, we wanted to fundraise for that reason.
So, okay, so that was the only purpose of the new fundraising.
Absolutely, yeah. Expansion. It was just it's always funnier to play with someone else's money, honestly. And you should look at fundraising like that. Like, I want to take some risk, and I'm going to take the risk with someone else's money.
So you picked a VC from abroad?
Yeah, we did pick. We went with Vautier 7. They are a UK-based VC. 2 amazing women, very strong focus on finances and brands, which is exactly what we wanted to have. They've invested in Vestiaire Collective, they've invested in Guizou. So they were exactly what we were looking for, with a very strong knack when it comes to international and also brands, which is basically what we wanted to do. So it's also how we made the choice, because we did say no to other investors to go with them. And what the reason why is the values and not the valuation of the company. But just to kind of get back to the thing is, It really comes down to what you want to achieve and how documented you are. As a solo founder, obviously a good part of fundraising comes with my ability to, share my vision. I think you mentioned that your co-founders were not like really more public. So I think it really comes down to the ability of a founder or co-founder to just come and share the vision. But once you share the vision, if the numbers don't add up, it doesn't, honestly, it doesn't matter. You can share the vision as many as you want, and people will just say, the numbers don't add up. Because we're very transparent and very structured, once I share the vision, I send a deck, I send an Excel, I send an NDA saying you want to have access to the other two documents, sign the NDA. They have access to the document. They say, I want a data room. I said, show to me that you're interested. I will give you a data room. And then, basically in 5 days, people can have access to everything that they need to make an educated decision. And we can do that because we're very well structured. And I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs, not enough because I don't have a lot of time. And a lot of the question that people come and ask is, how much should I raise? The question is not how much should you raise, is how much money do you need? And it's not how much should you raise. And also, what should I have when I fundraise? 2 things, an Excel spreadsheet, 3 to 5 years, and a very beautiful deck that shares vision, value, numbers. That's it. Anything else is unnecessary. These are basically all the things that you need. And once you have that, you can do whatever.
Nice.
Oh my God.
Wow, there's a great storm.
I have my bike outside. It's going to be nice.
And again, so regarding what you're selling is key, and also you sell physical product again. And I have a question on, I would say, the theme you are in. So you are in femtech, or you sell solution for pregnancy and maternity. Was it a struggle?
No, I'm not in femtech.
You're not in femtech. Okay.
No, I'm not. So basically, we are a tech company because we're a direct-to-consumer company. So everything that we do online. We have built the first ever traceability platform based on blockchain protocol. So we are a fucking tech company, dear. We do sell products, but using data and improving everything that the customer is going through, thanks to data, thanks to tech, comes with being a tech company. At the end of the day, it comes down to what is radical innovation. If you look at Uber, there are fights in the US, clans in the US, on is Uber really a disruptive company or not? At the end of the day, basically Uber has not changed your behavior. You get someone in a car drives you to point A to point B. What Uber changed is, before Uber, you had to go on the streets and say this. Now you take your phone and you pick it up on the phone. That's the only thing that Uber has changed. So tech has improved the behavior that you have, but it hasn't changed the behavior that you have. The iPhone is a complete disruption because before the iPhone, you had your computer and you had your cell phone, and now you have everything in one thing. And now it has changed the way you operate on a day-to-day. So when it comes down to being tech or not tech, is mostly how do you use tech to improve the experience of a consumer. We improve today the experience at about 80,000 families in France and abroad by using tech.
But let me rephrase it. The question in the chat was not exactly if you are tech or not. It was mainly on the topic, because when you talk to VCs, mainly you have mainly male investors. So did they understand exactly the markets? Was it a struggle for you as a founder and as a female founder, basically?
So many questions. So yes, the VCs understand the market, because when you talk to, obviously, because I do brand, I have to talk to VCs who understand brands. So there are VCs that I would never talk to because they don't invest in brands. So it really comes down to what is the investment strategy of that fund versus that fund. So that's step 1. Step 2, I come as a solo founder. I have a PhD in American literature and not a degree from a graduate school. I used to be an actress, a university professor. I had just written a book, a novel, and so all these things together weigh a lot more than she's a girl. Because I'm basically everything that people would be worried about. The fact that I was a girl was like last. It's like, like, do we want to fund it? Like, we don't know this girl. She doesn't have a degree in anything. She just bankrupted a company. All these things weigh a lot more than she's a girl. Especially because as a girl, I didn't have this is my first baby, so I didn't have a baby back then. I couldn't say, well, you know, I understood there was a problem because I had a problem with my children. No, I didn't. So, you know, being a girl really came last in the amount of stuff that people would just say, do we really want to go with the solo founder that never went to business school, that used to be the professor / actress / novelist / what the fuck? That's actually a lot worse than just being a girl, honestly.
Cool. Coming back on your 2 weeks roadshow, I have a question from, where is it, by the way? Whenever I saw the question. So, so you talked to VCs for 2 weeks. So you shared numbers. You shared many things. So is it dangerous?
I think this is a very French question. You know, it's like sharing your ideas. Is it something dangerous? Are people gonna steal your ideas?
But your numbers.
Yeah, numbers. For me, it's the same. Numbers, ID, everything. I love to share like my numbers in public, even from the day we were not making a lot of money. Just because for me, in each of my article, I always share a milestone. So I don't have investors. And whenever you're sharing your milestone to the public, it keeps you super accountable of what you want to accomplish. So for example, we said in one of our last articles, we want to reach the $10 million in ARR at the end of 2021. So I was like, yeah, we need to do it. You know, like I've stated it publicly. Everyone is reading. The article was shared like 2,000 times. We need to do it, you know. And so no, I'm not afraid of that. Like numbers, I think should be public. I think it's nice because it also allows a lot of people to project themselves. Because I remember like the time I got the most inspired from entrepreneurs, it's actually like Maxime Berthelot. He was a former buffer and built like Pixelme. And his first article was about, you know, like how did they get their first 10 or 100 customers. And he was, you know, like stating everything step by step, the process, how much money, like what was their churn and everything. And I was like, yes, this is the life, like this is the adventure. And for me, sharing your numbers into details, it gives credibility because it's the truth, and it allows people to really like rely on what you're doing and eventually like help them to get inspired into entrepreneurship.
I'm going to have a different answer to that question. I live in a market that is dominated by a player that owns 50% of the market worldwide. Because of that, I'm not sharing all my numbers. I'm sharing a few numbers. But I'm sharing all my numbers for the people who need to know those numbers. My team, my investors, the people close to me. I think there's, specifically in my position, there's a fine line between just sharing something just to share. Most of the time, like, who cares about my revenue? The press, my competition. I don't care what the press wants. And I kind of like that my competition doesn't know exactly my numbers because it keeps them annoyed by what I do, because they are annoyed basically by what I do. And ultimately what matters is the numbers you give to your community. What matters in terms of transparency, and that's one of the tricks that the journalists love to say, like, you're promoting transparency, but you're not actually giving everything, every little detail when it comes to revenue, churn, customers, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I'm being transparent with who it matters. I'm being transparent with my community. I'm being transparent with my team. I'm being transparent with the parents that buy the products every month. That's what matters. And so I would say that in a highly competitive environment, not to say that yours is not competitive, obviously, it kind of makes sense to just give out the right numbers and the numbers that stick. You know, like 20 million revenue, break even in 3.5 years, period. And that's it.
Boom. You can drop the mic.
I don't want to do it because I don't want to ruin the sound for everyone, and I don't want to break something.
I saw the video team. They were like, don't do it.
Guillaume would have done it because Guillaume is a rebel. But I'm like, I'm a girl and I'm polite. So I'm like, I'm not going to do the mic drop.
So I'm not polite, okay.
There's another question on, for example, regarding figures and transparency. Let me quote Super Malcolm. Guillaume, so how much is your company worth now? Is this something you share?
Yeah, but for me, like how much your company worth doesn't mean anything. Like the only thing your company is worth is how much money is someone willing to buy it. So if I look at the VC, for example, whenever we see valuations, in the press. So for example, the offer we got was we were around like 4 million in ARR at that time, and we got an offer like it was 20x our current ARR. So it was 25x, I think. So it was a $100 million valuation. But the truth is that the company is not worth 100 million. It's worth 100 million because they are giving you a lot of money, which basically would push the valuation, because it's like you get a lot of cash, and with this cash, they expect that your company would be worth a lot. But if you look at the proper market in SaaS, so software as a service, if you're below 1 million in revenue, you can get, I would say, like between 3 to 5x multiple on your annual recurring revenue. If you're between 1 and 10, it can be between, let's say, 4 to 7. And then if you're above 10, then the multiple can be up to 15 or 20. So in our case, we're like between 1 and 10, so we're at like 6 million. And if you multiply it by 6, the real market value, if we had to get acquired today, would be somewhere around $40 million from someone paying cash.
Cool. So going back to the expansion topic, so Carole, you raised to expand, to go abroad, to open offices. What is your tactic to go abroad? So you go through partnerships?
No, it's like, to be honest, like we do a lot of sales prospecting. So we use a lot our tool to go in the US. And for us, it's quite useful because as soon as we book a meeting, whenever people don't really trust in outbound or whatever, we can say, yeah, but without the email or without the LinkedIn message I would have sent you, we wouldn't be here talking. So it's a really good selling point. So for us, we have a lot of competitive advantage when it comes to the product. We also have a lot of word of mouth. And right now, to be like, again, fully transparent, we could hire maybe like 80 more people and we'd still be like break even. So having more money for me would be just more problem. So
it's a choice. I mean, you are just sharing your vision as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so for me, it would really be like more problem. I wouldn't know how to spend it. So right now, my focus, because we hired, so when you reach 1 million, we were 6 people in the company. And we're already like making a lot of profits because our margin are like really, really high. But again, now we're 35, which means that, I'm young. I'm not like, I'm not saying that I know everything. I make a lot of mistakes. I make a lot of management mistakes. So I need to learn. So the time for me to learn, help the team grow, because I hired only like people, I would say like were very inexperienced. So they had no really like knowledge into the SaaS business, into like what we are doing or anything. So it takes time for them to level up. And my goal, I see myself a bit as a coach. So I spend a lot of time trying to help people grow in the company. And if I decide to hire, let's say, like 10 new people per month, I would like, what the fuck? I don't know what to do with those people. So I prefer keeping the company small and trying to do great things, because I think, again, it's the same thing. I think this is very male thing. It's like the bigger your team is, the prouder you can get at a dinner. So it's like, yeah, look at my team. I have 100 people. Yeah, but you're paying yourself 2K per month, which is shit, or whatever. It's like, at some point, it's like, yeah, you have to be like transparent in the things you want to do. And yeah, some people just like big numbers because it looks nice at dinner. I like to be highly profitable and make the company enjoy like what we do.
But what Guillaume said about teams is so true. We talk about the numbers and we talk about all the crazy things when it comes to investor and fundraising. Behind every good startup company is an incredible team. And a team takes time. I always go back to a team, a company, it's a love story. It takes time and it takes proof. And you can short it as much as you want. At the end of the day, time and proof is what builds a company. And it really comes down to having an incredible staff that is highly committed, and it takes time. I mean, we've all made mistakes, not recruiting the right people, not onboarding them the right way, not managing them the right way, because we are creators and we're not like super qualified managers. So building a team takes time. And I would always advise against, and it's one of the advice that I got, is never do more than double your team per year, because you're not able to sustain the growth, the value that comes with it. And it is very true. I mean, there are 65 of us now. And every single step, whenever you double up the team, there were 4 and 8, 8, then 16, 16, then 25, 25, then 50, 50, then 65. And so at the end of so it's not really double, but at the end of the day, every single step has changed the way you have to manage, the way you structure the team, the way you want to build, things around you, the velocity at which you operate. And all these things are things that not a lot of people talk about because we're obsessed with talking about the numbers. But I think it's really important what Guillaume said. And again, having too much money to spend on building stuff and building a team, or spending too much on Facebook or Google is just not healthy. You have to always have a really good mastery of your cash, because behind the cash there's something, and tripling, like doing like 10x your team is not healthy. It's just not healthy.
So just guys, 5 minutes left, so if you have any questions, please share it. Again, regarding your last round of fundraising, so we have a question from Guillaume, who is willing to know how you plan to spend these raised money in terms of marketing, recruitment, roughly.
Roughly. Well, it's an interesting question. It really, I would say, never spend a lot of money on on launching a country. I think all the startup companies that I've learned that said, for instance, I want to raise 20 million to launch the US. They all came back to France, 20 million poorer, without having succeeded in launching the US. So I would say, you have, obviously, when you fundraise, you get some money. We also have a high, we operate on products. So at some point, the more we sell, the more stock we need. So the more stock we need to pay, the more stock we need to hold, the longer we need to hold it. So at any given time, I have a few, and sometimes a few dozens of millions in stock at some point. So that's something that also, it's I don't fundraise for stock, obviously, because banks are here to finance stock. But it also brings some kind of, mental security, just knowing that, you never want to be in a position when, you cannot afford to have stock. That's step 1. And step 2 is expansion is really a startup within a startup company. So you cannot and you should not just spend 2, 4, 3 millions building a 10-people team, opening the fanciest office in a country, and just trying to apply exactly what you've done in that country, in your home country. I think that would be a mistake. So what we do right now is we basically bootstrap, having fundraised, and knowing that we're not spending the money that we raised. We're spending a little bit of that money, but not a lot of that money. And the goal is, if it works out, then we have the money in the bank to just like fuel. But we're not spending, we raised 10 million, we're launching 4 countries. We're not spending that money into these, we're not spending like 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5. It just wouldn't make any sense. So bootstrap, and if it works out, you get the money to fuel. Makes sense.
Perfect. So I guess that will be the last question will be the one from Ariel, and I guess for you, because you love this topic. So how do you do hypergrowth at the beginning without funding? If you can sum up your videos.
Wow.
Well, you can follow Guillaume if you want to.
Go on his YouTube channel.
I think, it's always the same. Everything takes time. So, hypergrowth. At first, hypergrowth, it's like getting at 20% when you have like 1,000 euros. It's like, okay, next month you are 1,200, etc. So what I would say is, in the end, business, it's all about the success of our users, like if you're in B2B. So it's all about ROI. So your only focus should be around that. It's like, I see a lot of founders who are afraid to do sales, who are afraid to talk to their users because they are 100% convinced that they got this brilliant idea and that they are right about everything. I used to be exactly like this. So I try to slap my face at least 10 times per year, and I say, okay, go out there, do these things, because it's tricky. Whenever you talk to your customers, they're gonna tell you things you don't want to hear, but it is the truth. So if you can focus on this, talking to your customers, trying to find, like what are their pain points? Can you write content about these pain points? Once you wrote the content, send them the content so they can learn new things because you're the expert in a specific field. Then, try to share it to more people, bring value, reach out to your users, make them more successful. Do the things that don't scale at first. I think that's super important. At first, to be honest, you remember that guy when I mentioned he had closed his first $20,000 deal. At that time, I saw that message. Okay, I was happy for him, but I was like, fuck, my girlfriend is still paying the rent. I don't have money, and is not paying our software because we were in beta and we were super cheap. So we're like, yeah, it's free. Come on, all the mistakes I did in the past. So it's yeah.
To do hypergrowth, you need to have a 9 months deadline, maybe. So
yeah, 9 months baby is good. Yeah, 9 months baby deadline.
You need to achieve it. Well, anything else you'd love to share to the audience regarding the topic?
At the end of the day, anything that you do, you should just be very serious about it and seriously have fun doing it. It shouldn't be painful. It shouldn't be about your ego. It should be about what you want to accomplish, who you want to accomplish it with, and what kind of message, what kind of company you want to build for the future. I think that's what's truly important.
Yeah, to be honest, I really agree on this topic. We're super aligned, but having fun, I think, is the most important part. Life is too short, so do things the way you see it. You built your company, you're sacrificing already a lot, so have fun because life is too short.
Cool. Well, merci Carole, merci Guillaume.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And guys, thanks a lot for attending. You'll get the replay in a few hours or a few days. Well,
in a few
tuned.
seconds.
In a few seconds.
I can see people on
seconds.
the tech side no. Not
Thanks
happening.
a lot. Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Bye
bye.
bye.